construct of Christianity is a sham. You hear and you experience, sometimes you probably even think, what's the point in continuing to perpetrate this when there's so much dysfunction in it? It's natural, normal questions, but God has established spiritual authority, and everything that goes on within every church isn't necessarily spiritual abuse. For example, and we have a series of examples, it is not abusive when a spiritual leader who has the responsibility to make final decisions uses his or her best judgment and chooses against an individual's opinion. So just because you don't like, a person doesn't like what the pastor decided, doesn't mean that they've been spiritually abused. It is abusive, however, if someone's opposing view is used to devalue that person's spirituality. Okay. In other words, when they say, if you don't see it the way I see it, I got a question whether or not you're saved. That's a completely different dynamic. We can disagree. You can think I'm dead wrong, I can think I'm dead right, but that doesn't give me place to question whether or not you're saved just because you have a different opinion than I do. Right. Just because you don't see things the way I do. Or just because somebody else doesn't see something the way that you do. I wish I had time to get into some of this, and I may end up recycling some of this next week, because I've got a lot that we can get into and dig into. But I think I'm probably going to have to come back to some of this. Another example, it is not abusive when a Christian, whether they're a leader or not, confronts another Christian because of sin, wrongdoing, or even honest mistakes that have to be corrected. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to. You don't have to be a preacher to say what you're doing ain't right. You don't have to be in a position of a spiritual authority to say, I don't understand, or I don't think that the Bible says that this is okay. That doesn't really seem Christ-like to me. Let's talk about this. Or, there's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, the objective of doing that has to be, or the objective, of course, is not to shame or to discredit, but to heal, save, and restore. So, in other words, jumping on you just to make you feel guilty, or because your unrighteousness offends my sensibilities, is a legitimate reason to deal with it. The point of whatever, the approach and the point of dealing with it ought to be to heal or to restore or to come to an understanding. Maybe I need to understand something, maybe you need to understand it, but we're supposed to be trying to help one another, not just trying to argue over who's more spiritual and who's more saved. Right. Likewise, it's not abusive when a person in ministry or leadership is asked to step down from their position because of physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual problems. Right. Sometimes you get caught up, sometimes you can't keep functioning, and you got no business trying to work in a ministerial capacity because you got too much going on. Mm-hmm. And if somebody asks you to take a seat because you need to deal with your personal life, and when that battle's over, we'll bring you back in the ministry, that's not abusive. The goal, once again, is supposed to be helping people to receive help. Mm-hmm. So that eventually, if it's expedient, they can come back. So correction and chastisement isn't abuse. Right. As long as the objective is to try to bring you into fellowship with God. And bringing you into fellowship with God is something that we're going to deal with more later on, because sometimes what some people say is trying to bring you into fellowship is really just trying to get you to comply with their culture. There's a difference between the two. And that's one of the ways that somebody thinks that they're trying to help you, but really they're just trying to make themselves feel better about the fact that they don't want somebody they associate with act a specific way. It's one of the ways spiritual abuse can occur, and one of the things that we're going to have to unpack. It's not abusive to hold certain standards of group conduct, like a dress code, within a community. It becomes abusive when others are spiritually degraded or shamed because they don't maintain the same convictions. It's okay to have standards. It's okay to have expectations. It's okay to say, especially when you have a leader says, I don't believe this is godly. I don't believe this behavior, activity, dress reflects Christ as I understand him. But when I begin to degrade you because you don't get it, make you feel like you're not a part, or like you can't be a part because you don't fall in line, that's a different scenario. That's a different situation. You can have your standards, you can have your expectations, you can teach the you can teach the principle of modesty and what does modesty look like without having to nitpick how high your heel can be, how big the hoop can be, how much makeup. We don't have to get into all of that if we talk about what the principle of modesty looks like, how Christ exemplified it, and whether or not what we there's a much broader conversation as opposed to I just don't think women should wear pants in the pulpit. Oh, that's your, and you can't do, and if you do it, I'm gonna look at you funny, and you're gonna feel it. Those are two different dynamics. So you have legitimate authority, and you have usurped authority. Questions so far, comments?